of the people who were visiting as a guest and the people who were visiting as team members was completely merged, and everybody was there for the same reason. That whether you were a board certified doctor or a housekeeper who could make a perfect swan on a bed, or you were a, crack addicted crypto entrepreneur, or an opioid addicted, venture fund manager, or just a wonderful soccer mom who really felt like she had everything she wanted, but still felt like a guest in her life, could all be together and know deeply that they were there for the same reason, to learn and to grow and to heal and to change. No matter what brought you there today or last week, you were there for the same reason.
Hi, I'm Steve Saporn, and welcome to the Nero's Journey podcast. This is part 2 of our 3-part series on Leah Mix's Ibogaine journey. Leah is in Mexico at the Beond clinic going through her Ibogaine treatment right now. And I'm here in Cancun sitting down with the 2 people who made Beond happen, Tom and Talia Eisenberg. Talia was a 20-year-old struggling with opioid addiction when Ibogaine changed her life. During that experience, she saw a vision of the exact healing center that exists today, 16 years before they built it. And Tom was a former hedge fund manager in recovery who was initially skeptical of psychedelics, but he asked himself a question: where could I take someone I love for this treatment and feel comfortable that they were doing it right? And the answer was that didn't exist. So they built it. What struck me most about Beond isn't the medical equipment or the beautiful property. It's the culture. Everyone there, doctors, therapists, staff, even the guests, they're all on the same journey. They're all there to heal, grow, and find joy in life. This conversation is about more than Ibogaine or Beond. It's about what happens when 2 people turn their own healing into service, when they build something the world desperately needs but didn't really know how to create. I started the Nero's Journey because I understand what it feels like to be broken and lost. And I know there's a way out. Sometimes your deepest pain becomes your greatest purpose. Here's my conversation with Tom and Talia Eisenberg. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time. It's meaningful that you would take it. I know you're super busy. And I just wanted to reflect a little bit, like we're here because the love of my life, Leah Mix, is being treated at Beond right now. And, you hear this thing, when you decide to do the journey, that's when you're on it, right? You hear that a lot on psychedelics. And what I've experienced is once Leah decided to do the journey, so was I on it. And mostly what I love, or maybe not mostly, but one of the things that I really love about the experiences that I've had recently is I feel like I get to have a purpose in life. And before, the way my nervous system was, I didn't feel like I could have a purpose. My purpose was don't be an asshole to the people in my vicinity, basically. And so this has given me an opportunity to live my purpose because I'm coming down here, I'm making this content, I'm trying to love Leah the best way that I possibly can, and support her. And my sense of it is that, a couple of Americans coming to Cancun to start this incredible institution that you've started. It's not just a business, it's related to your purpose in life. And so, I definitely want to hear about Ibogaine and the science of the mind and all that, but the story of how you're ending up sitting on this couch and serving people and how that relates to your purpose in life is an interesting one to me. So if you're willing to talk about that, I would love to hear it.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having us. And thank you so much for your vulnerability. It means a lot. And the way that you hold Leah and yourself, I can feel that. And it's an honor. It's an honor to be here with you, for both Tom and myself. Well, for me, the journey started when I was born, almost 40 years ago. I was born into a family with a lot of intergenerational trauma. My grandmother in particular had survived the Holocaust, had come to America as immigrants, had watched their family slaughtered, and terrible what happened. But I, grew up in the Midwest to my parents and my grandparents, and from a young age felt uneasy, felt a lot of anxiety, maybe because, my grandparents were immigrants and we were in Omaha, Nebraska, and we were speaking Yiddish and Jewish in a place that wasn't. But also, I think I felt this deep unease in general. And so basically, at the age of 16, 17, started to experiment with drugs, and then was living in New York City, going to college, and high functioning, but had a root canal and was given an opiate as a prescription, like many people during that time, and they were overprescribed, and felt that ease of these symptoms of anxiety and just pressure of what am I going to do in life? Who am I? And what is my purpose here? And that helped calm me. And, living in New York, it's a lot of chaos and intensity. And I felt that peace, and I kept taking the pills, and I was buying them illegally. And just like many people's stories, you need more and more to achieve the effects. And I did that for a couple of years, and my parents were worried, of course. And I went to traditional rehabs in the U.S., what at the time were the best ones that boasted the highest success rates in the country, which still weren't very great. And I realized a couple weeks, I would want to stop. I'd leave these rehabs, and a couple weeks after leaving them, I just would have these intense cravings for more opiates. I just needed them to function in school and in life. And, I ran into a friend, I'm 20, 21 years old, who had just done Ibogaine, and this was a guy that I used to party with, and from the New York social scene. He was newly married. His life was rebuilt. And he said, you have to try this. You have to go experience Ibogaine. I don't have the cravings. And more so than that, I feel a sense of purpose in my life. I feel like my brain's been repaired. I feel like my own family trauma has been repaired. And I thought, wow, that's very interesting. So I continued to relapse. I remember that. And then a few months later was on a plane to, experience Ibogaine in a place that I wouldn't recommend. It didn't have the level of professionalism that people deserve. No medical support, no therapeutic preparation, and really just not professional and somewhat scary. Mm. But I did have this profound awakening. First of all, the desire to use, which would take up all of my living moment to moment of when am I going to, how can I keep up with this addiction? Where am I going to get the next hit, essentially? That was gone. So that felt that relief instantly after taking the medicine. But more so than that, I had a profound awakening around my purpose. I was lost pretty much. And then it showed me my grandmother surviving. It showed me why I was here, to be of use to the world. And it also showed me very clearly that one day we would have to build a center where people could come and feel safe and supported and heal their own trauma, their own addictions, their PTSD. And it looked exactly like what Beond looks like today, the White House, which you saw. So that was crazy. And that was, fast forward 16 years later now. I didn't know how. I didn't know who would help. I didn't know, and then I first spent many years focusing on myself. So after that, I had to find integration support and a great therapist. And I was blessed to move to Boulder from New York City. And I started working weekly with Marcella Otalora, who became my therapist, who helped with, MDMA and MAPS in the US in those early phases. She became my therapist in Boulder and helped me make sense, because Ibogaine's not a silver bullet. She helped me make sense of what I saw and helped me forgive people in my life and my childhood, and helped me forgive oppressors, so that was very profound. And then, of course, I started doing things like yoga. I went back to college. I really made a lot of changes. And then fast forward years later, I met Tom in New York City, maybe 11, 12 years ago. And I told him about Ibogaine and my experience. We were both already in sobriety. After Ibogaine, I vowed not to put poison in my body again, never touch an opiate, alcohol, or stimulants. And Tom had also been in recovery for many years. So that was a deep connection we shared, and just a profound spiritual connection we had that rather instantly. And we came together, and merged our lives together. And I never thought we would open up an Ibogaine Center, but, we saw that the need was there. Years later, I went back to business school. We had a family, we have kids together. We saw during COVID, basically the level of isolation, the spike in addiction. There was no place to send people that we loved and cared, who were suffering either from severe trauma or addiction. There was no but people would say, "Where can we go? Where can we go?" You've had profound healing from this tool, Ibogaine, and I couldn't recommend a place. So we were blessed at that time. We had the ability to do so, to come here to Cancun and open up our own facility. And that's how Beond started in 2021.
Here, oftentimes when people get on this healing path, right, it can be challenging for relationships. If your person's not on it with you, then you're moving in different directions or different things. So clearly you're part of this. And so it must align with your purpose also. And how do you, hearing your beautiful wife's story and that, how does it align with what you're doing, and why have you made the commitment to come down here and make this your life's work?
My childhood was one marked with severe abuse and trauma and neglect and abandonment and fear of betrayal. And thank goodness that I found a very marketable maladaptation to trauma, which was academics. I was a very good student for the wrong reasons. I was afraid that if I didn't do well, then, I would be punished severely. And so I always had this sense that, learning and growing were a source of purpose that I could tap into, and where I felt safe. I felt safe with teachers. I felt safe in academic institutions for the most part. And so when I had the opportunity to learn about how this technology, Ibogaine and other examples of plant medicine, had helped Talia with her growth and healing, I was very curious about it. I knew that it was something that I was very unfamiliar with, but I had had experiences that were adjacent or complementary. I was already meditating. I already had a very active spiritual practice. I had gone to Boulder, where you live, and spent time at Naropa and learned to meditate and write poetry. And, when I heard about her experience, I was curious, but not committed. But the more that I saw her get an MBA, we had children, she, was a wonderful inspiration to me. Very clean living, very energetically clean, committed to her own pursuit, different healing modalities. I was willing to learn because I wanted to understand more about her. And there was sort of a synergistic, virtuous, complementary experience. The more I learned, of course, I became more familiar with my partner, but it also began to help me as well. And, I took a more, what would be labeled perhaps a conventional path to recovery through 12-step programs. But in part, I think because I was desperate, but significantly more, I was a very good student. If someone put a book of 12 steps in front of me, I was going to do my absolute best to learn about that material and the community that claimed to use it and that it had helped them. And so I was already experiencing my own version of a spiritual awakening. And that was very satisfying and meaningful to me in all the key dimensions of my life. I had stopped drinking and using drugs, so all of my relationships were better. My work, a sense of accomplishment at work was better. My community had changed. I was already of service to people. But I have really no relationship with anything to do with therapeutic use of psychedelics. In fact, I was opposed to them. I was not, I don't take drugs. So I was skeptical about people who claimed to be taking these exotic plant medicines. Sometimes it struck me as they were seeking a diversion from the types of introspective challenges that I was embracing without any accelerant in meditation and prayer and writing and fellowship and so on. But I was willing to go along because, I was in love with someone and that, people learn all kinds of things because they're in love with someone, dog training, mountain climbing, I don't know. And so
Ibogaine.
And so I was willing to go along and sit with Talia and meditate while she experienced, things like ayahuasca and other healing modalities. But through study, I really came to understand that I had been taught that all medicine came in an amber bottle from CVS. And I was an eyewitness to the transformation, both profound and incremental, in someone that I had a deep connection with. And so I began to explore, did other people have ideas like this? That maybe there are historical precedent for the use of plants as medicine. And the more I looked, the more I learned. I learned that, grandmothers have always known that lavender would calm a baby and that aloe could serve as a salve for a sunburn, or that, vitamin C in an orange was the only cure known to man for scurvy as people sailed from the old world to the new world. These were exotic plant medicines at one time and now routinely used on those that we care most about. Moms give kids all three of those exotic plant medicines now routinely, and they sell them in all kinds of configurations and major retailers. And so this, really awakened for me a willingness to question what I had been taught and what I'd come to believe, and also to study more deeply what was the role of the indigenous communities around the world, not just the Bwiti in Central West Africa and Gabon related to Ibogaine, but the Shipibo in Peru and other places around the world where they just had always assumed that nature was their classroom, nature was their pharmacy, nature was their sanctuary. And they would use the intelligence of nature and the fruits of nature to align with that source of life and heal and grow at key ages and stages of life, before they were trying to get pregnant, when a baby was born, when they might have met someone that they cared about, when they were changing roles in society to become a household manager, a mother, a father, a warrior, a guide, a leader, or in grief at the end of life, helping people transition. And that led me to really want to understand what would happen if we could successfully architect the combination of a modern healthcare facility, licensed, credentialed, staffed with some board certified physicians and ICU certified nurses. If we could combine that with a mental health and optimization environment where everyone who came, no matter where they started, they were seeking better. They were seeking to optimize their own relationship with themselves and their sense of life and the purpose of their existence, and combine those two with a the environment of a personal development retreat, staffed by people trained to try to inspire and encourage and support incrementally the journey of individuals who are on all different stages of a path of growth, the right curriculum, the right types of engagement, together or individual or independent, self-motivated, self-sustaining, with a resort type of environment, with all of the adjunct therapeutic modalities, fitness and yoga and meditation and art and sound, aquatics and other types of activities. If we could somehow intricately interweave all of those types of activities, what would happen? I'm very curious about that. And so my hope was that we would start that experiment and learn along the way, but ultimately there would be a place in the world that would be good enough for Talia to have needed when she needed to go experience Ibogaine. I legitimately asked the question, where would she go if she needed it today? And why wouldn't there be a place where, if I was invited to participate, I would have the privilege of dropping her off there and feel totally safe, feel totally secure that she would be honored and celebrated for her courage and commitment and creativity to find a solution that worked for her. Or even better, I would be jealous that I didn't get to stay. Why can't there be a place like that? I knew there were great hospitals. I knew there were better than other rehabs. I knew there were, exciting retreats that people could go on. I knew there were awesome resorts, but no one had ever tried to put them all together. And to do that in a way where the culture of the people who were visiting as a guest and the people who were visiting as team members was completely merged, and everybody was there for the same reason. That whether you were a board certified doctor or a housekeeper who could make a perfect swan on a bed, or you were a, crack addicted crypto entrepreneur, or an opioid addicted, venture fund manager, or just a wonderful soccer mom who really felt like she had everything she wanted, but still felt like a guest in her life, could all be together and know deeply that they were there for the same reason, to learn and to grow and to heal and to change. No matter what brought you there today or last week, you were there for the same reason.
Beautiful. And, having just walked around your place, and you can see all the wellness. I mean, it looks like a resort and it's very beautiful and all those things. I will tell you, as someone who experienced a lot of sexual abuse, I'm very attuned to safety. Mm-hmm. I'm very attuned to the energy of the environment. So what I felt was really towards the end of what you said, the culture of the people. Yeah. Like I felt safe there. I felt just a lot of joy in them working there. I felt really honored to be there. I could see like, okay, this feels good. It feels like, because most of it, at least for me, what I feel like with healing is I used to want to add things to myself. Add, but really it's like my experience has been, it's more like releasing things. And like, am I comfortable to release something in front of somebody? Yeah. Like I could always tell you, I'm going to make my muscles bigger, something like that and feel good about it. But can I, and I mean, I think I cried 3 times during the hour and a half that I was there, and I'm kind of a crier, but I felt that, and that's hard to do. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, because the way that I experience you, I mean, you're a pretty hard charging business person, and we've interacted and all the things, and it sounded like your academic career made you feel a certain way. Yeah. So how does it feel to be still putting in a lot of effort? You're clearly putting in a lot. Do you feel different doing this work than you did?
I don't feel like it's work. I feel like it's it is a profound honor and privilege to get to go to Beond every day and to do my absolute best to steward the direction of this community, this enterprise, Some of our shareholders probably see this as an investment. But most importantly, to get to learn how to continue to become a better person. I get to practice all of the modalities that we offer. In fact, all of our staff are strongly encouraged to participate in all of the modalities of healing that we offer and to bring new ones in for evaluation, the possibility that we might be able to incorporate it in some way if they're interested. And so it doesn't feel like work at all. Of course, there's a commitment, and I have hours, and, but I guess I would say if I had known how hard it was going to be to cause a place like Beond to exist and be sustainable and to grow so quickly and to be profitable and to be able to expand continuously. We now have not 4 properties, but 5 properties, to be able to meet the needs of more people, more veteran spouses, to meet the needs of more team members and their parents, and to serve their life's mission, not only to help them buy birthday cakes for their kids, but for them to heal and to grow and to change. If I had known how hard that was going to be, I would have never started. Absolutely never started. There's a lot of things that I was trained to do, and assembling so many different operating environments simultaneously for so many different patient populations without any roadmap, without any historical precedent. No one has ever done anything like what we're doing. But I didn't know that. So I was blissfully naive. Mm-hmm. I did go and meet people who were affiliated with Ibogaine facilities and listen carefully to what they said about why they did what they did the way they did it, and thought, gosh, they're leaving something out. They're leaving this or that or some kind of underlying sense of love and transparency and compassion out. They had started clinics, and Beond is not a clinic. We never want to be a clinic. We have clinical aspects. We're not a resort. We never want to be a resort. If people go to Beond to go on vacation, they go to Beond to do work. But it's the same work that I get to do every day. I want them and all of our team to feel like they get to make the love that they have in their heart for themselves and the sense of purpose of their existence visible. Mm. And if I had known how hard it was going to be, I promise you I never would have started. But if I had known how satisfying it was going to feel, I wouldn't have waited so long.
Mm-hmm. So Talia, how you've observed him through this journey, right? And you've seen that worker side of him. How does it feel to be with him now and this stage of his life?
Well, yeah, I wanted to speak to that while he was talking, because he certainly has shifted. He was already a very heart-based person when I met him, but I've watched him now through the years as he does this work and as he serves others and shows up and holds people through their pain and challenges become more in his heart. And I think he explained how he was very patient and open-minded, even though he didn't choose maybe the same medicine path I had. I would go and sit with part of my healing work was I would go sit with the Shipibo in Peru for 2 or 3 weeks. And we were living in Marin at the time with our family. And this was years ago. And he was open to it. Even though I'd go and disappear, there was no Wi-Fi. He'd support by giving me, we were laughing about it the other day, one of the phones where, what's that phone called?
It's a GPS.
A GPS, where you could maybe get reception. Satellite phone. Occasionally I'd have to, because there was no Wi-Fi there. But he was supportive, and I would go there for weeks once a year, weeks at a time, and he was open to it. And in turn, I was open to, I was never interested in 12-step, even though I was sober many years when we met. But when I met him, I became more open to it and I started going, and that really helped, not because I wanted to use drugs but more because I felt depressed and I didn't have a daily practice or structure. And I think AA taught me that. When I met Tom, I was more open to hearing about it. I thought it was this crazy cult before, and I stayed away from it for years.
Yeah.
And it really taught me about meditation and owning my own part, looking at my own part, making amends maybe for how I'd harmed others, not playing the victim. These are very big aspects of living not just about sobriety, living a clean life where you're able to, feel empowered, right? And not blame the other. And that was a gift that he brought me. So my point is, I've watched him. This has become it's not a vocation, it's service for both of us. Where can we be helpful to others that come through or our staff or, the many lives that we touch. So I've seen Tom really open up and become softer as a human. Whereas I think maybe when we first met, he was still more in this sort of male, go, go, go. He's become more receptive, there's more feminine aspects to him now that are, he's more emotional and he's a better listener. And so I like to say we have this fully integrated life. Our kids come on site sometimes, not often because it's not, we don't want kids wandering around,
Right.
But they'll come to the fire ceremony and sit. And we have, a life where we can be of service, and it's work, right? And we're building something, and our family's involved, and we're building a community and a family of our team is our family too. And so we're healing our own family dynamics through this. We all are. And we're welcoming new clients, and they're getting they're having their own awakenings, not because we're the healers, but because they're reminded that they're their own healer, which is a big piece of this work. And so, yeah, I would say we have this beautiful, fully integrated life where we both continue to evolve as spiritual beings and support others in doing the same. So.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so, you've obviously done more than just the Ibogaine is psychedelic work. And Ibogaine seems to have special risks that the other psychedelics don't have. And it might be easier to have started a psilocybin clinic or something.
Everybody did.
Yeah.
Right?
So
when we started, everyone was talking about ketamine and potentially MDMA, and how MDMA would be this profound, and I think it is, technology for accelerating psychotherapy. If we could just get the FDA to agree. And there was some talk about ayahuasca and how it helped so many people, and more culturally influential people had gone on some exotic retreat and had a profound and meaningful experience. The so-called psychedelic renaissance, or the emergence of cultural acceptance, was based on every other psychedelic except one, Ibogaine. And this was because it was thought to be, and to some degree still is, the most powerful psychedelic. It's called the Mount Everest of psychedelics. And also, factually, it is dangerous if used improperly. And so everyone that I had talked to that was investing in psychedelics or changing their career to align with some sort of related adjunct therapeutic engagement was talking about anything except Ibogaine. Ibogaine was the only psychedelic that I had a direct and personally relevant relationship with, because it had helped the person that I care most about in their life. So I thought, well, I see the benefits of it every day, and it's just unacceptable that there isn't a place where she could have gone Why is that? I'm just very curious about that. Why isn't that the case? And if there could be one, why can't it scale? If I remember reading an article in the fall of 2021, and it was based on a press release from the United States Center for Disease Control that said, for the first time in American history, there had been 100,000 overdose deaths in 1 year from opioids. And here I was building this beautiful life with someone who probably would have been one of those statistics if they hadn't found Ibogaine. And witnessing how incredibly inspiring her life was and existence was. And yet there were 900,999 other people who had died of an overdose that year who wouldn't have access to Ibogaine in the United States. And there wasn't a place that I thought was good enough for any of them to go. That they would have to somehow hold their nose, compromise their values, sacrifice their sense of security and safety, and go somewhere where they might not get the best possible care in the world. Why is that true? And I just literally couldn't sleep. I would stay up late and get up early thinking, what would need to be true for there to be a place like that? And it didn't matter that we weren't going to offer every other psychedelic, that people would go to some other place, some other country to have a different psychedelic experience. And that was of no interest to me whatsoever. What mattered is, would it be possible to have the clinical, technical infrastructure of a modern hospital that you would find in a major metropolitan city in the United States that would be retooled by experts so that it was designed to ensure the maximum level of safety of someone interested in this technology, this psychedelic experience, in the clinical evaluation, in the clinical preparation, in the psychological, emotional, and spiritual preparation, the monitoring during the experience itself by trained professionals who were gathering data and studying the results of the treatment, and would that level of clinical care would continue through the entire treatment and afterwards. That there would, the worst possible outcome was nobody had access to Ibogaine safely. The next worst was they would do it in a place that felt like a hospital, and that they would be treated like a machine who needed a mechanic. And I thought that just is unacceptable. And maybe I'll be involved in the solution. I didn't know that it would be the creation of a place that, I would get to work every day.
Wow. And during this time, had you experienced medicine when you were developing this passion?
Tangential beneficiary, I witnessed Talia, but when we did, we went out, we found there were we can find 3 licensed credentialed MDs, and Talia had talked to all of them. We ended up hiring 2 of them. Started talking to, neither of them worked for us at this time. We now have 11 doctors, full-time physicians at Beond. But the first 2 were really engaged to help us understand what would the minimum viable level of safety need to be for us to begin to build a clinical infrastructure around. We recruited PhD level researchers who had had decades-long relationship with Ibogaine and asked them, how can we make it better? How can we make it safer? How can we utilize the parts of the conventional psychotherapeutic modalities environment, but with this accelerant? Ibogaine is an accelerant. It doesn't do the work for you. It compounds and accelerates the work that someone is doing, either on their own or with a therapeutic coach or supporter or therapist to help them make more progress more quickly than they otherwise would on their own and not go backwards.
Hey, quick pause before we keep going. If this conversation is landing with you, become part of the Neuro's Journey community by subscribing and following along for more stories like this of courage and the science of healing. I'd love for you to drop a comment below and share what part of the episode hit home for you.
I would like to say, though, to answer your question, Tom was patient one.
Okay.
That's true.
He said, if it's safe and ready to go, I'm number one. If you're going to kill the CEO, I mean, it better be ready to go. So he was patient one.
I wasn't afraid at all. I was 100% confident in the team. I knew that we had the right trained professionals. We had the right operating procedures, the right safety protocols. I wanted to be the first one. In part, it's a way as an entrepreneur, we have this concept called a force function. You know, a company or a movie or, you know, some venture can be anything you want it to be as long as you never launch it. You just keep adding new things and people will have great ideas and you just keep adding them. And this is one of the reasons why some ventures never get off the ground or they run out of money before they otherwise should, is because they don't go to market with a minimum viable product that is satisfactory for a known set of customer needs. And so I told our doctors and our nurses and our therapists and our chefs and our hospitality team, I'm doing Ibogaine at Beond on this date. And you guys better be ready.
Well, tell us about your experience.
And I think we did push the date out a few times, but it's the type of culture that I want to be a part of, which is we're not here to talk about helping people. We're not here to talk about building this type of environment. We're not here to just brainstorm continuously and add one more idea. We're here to do it. And so I was delighted and proud to be the first person to experience Ibogaine at Beond.
And tell us about it. Answer your wife's question. You've been married a long time. You know how to do that.
Well, first of all, it was the most profound and meaningful experience of my existence.
Wow.
It showed me or allowed me to surface not the top 5 or the top 10 most meaningful memories of my life, not the ones that were the most joyous or the most traumatic, but the most meaningful memories of my life. Not the top 50, the top 50,000. So that I had this very long, very deep experience, dreamlike experience where I could observe sometimes myself or sometimes a symbol or image of myself that resembled me in a memory that was meaningful, but not re-experience it. Something that could be very scary if it was like a dream. A dream is very scary because we don't know it's a dream. I maintained my rational mind the entire time. I was able to navigate. I was able to be curious. I was able to feel a sense of enthusiastic discovery, but it was hard. It was very, very hard to be observing so much from so many different perspectives and so deep into my source of memories, going back all the way to infancy and when I was a toddler and as a child, not sequentially. So it wasn't like some documentary about the most meaningful memories of my life. Sometimes it would be contemporary times. Sometimes it might be, the earliest or most meaningful memory. And it was all kind of jumbled up. But what was really curious about was I knew what it meant. I could formulate some perspective of, if I saw a symbol, a birthday cake or a bicycle or something, I knew why. I knew what that meant to me in my sense of my life. And so somehow all of that high volume, very, very intense, sometimes uncomfortable, but I felt safe. I knew, because I had my rational mind available to me, I knew that if I took the eye mask off and I looked around. I knew where I was. I was in the world's sexiest ICU, apparently. I was listening to a curated playlist, and there was aromatherapy, and there was custom lighting, and there were people there to take care of me, and they wanted to be there. They were attending to every need that I had, whether it was to get to the restroom or have a sip of coconut water or a bite of fruit or something later in the experience. Listen, because of, my relationship with Talia, I did ayahuasca probably 20 times in, these very exotic environments, in a palapa in Peru, where it was just me and the shaman and the mosquitoes. And I thought, that's one way to experience plant medicine. There's nothing wrong with that. Or I did it in a warehouse in Brooklyn, and that's another way. But to be in a place where I truly knew that my body was being taken care of, that I had an IV and it was, a pump was flooding the exact right amount of electrolyte solution to keep me safe, that someone was observing constantly a 12 lead EKG to monitor exactly what was going in my body. I knew I could relax. I could go very, very, very deep into these images and into these symbols and into these memories for a very long period of time. It was like 12 hours. Now, of course, it was a psychedelic. So I felt like it could have been an hour or it could have been 12 years at different times. Sometimes it felt like it was taking forever. And other times I was wondering how long we had been doing this. It restored my sense of a commitment to playfulness that I had lost touch with, that it helped me observe parts of my childhood trauma and have empathy and compassion for care providers that up until that time, I just kind of begrudgingly had tried to forgive. I knew that it wasn't really what somebody would do in their right mind, but I didn't really look at it from their perspective as someone who had been innocent and confused and themselves had been harmed. And I had a deep sense of meaningful compassion that I had, that somehow there was something going on in my mind that made me want to use that compassion, made me want to remember that experience. And ayahuasca and other psychedelics, I had an insight, but I didn't have this part of my mind that said, oh my God, I got to remember this because I'm going to put this to work. I'm going to be able to use this to change all the key dimensions of my life. I felt like I was really tapping into this and harnessing this power to heal what I had been trying to understand or trying to read about or trying to talk about with decades of therapists or trying to numb with a pharmaceutical solution, because I needed relief from those symptoms, but I didn't know what healing really felt like. I actually felt it happening in my brain and in my body. It was this odd feeling of the medicine was just sort of working through me. Like they say, it was sort of like the, Mr. Clean scrubby bubbles was traveling around my neurotransmitters and receptors and restoring this sense of pre-habituated natural state. And afterwards, the next day, I felt, and this, everybody's experiences should be considered to be very different. I don't want to set expectations and give people this sense of this is what every Ibogaine experience is like. You asked me about mine. I felt like I wanted to get to work. I felt like I wanted to go for a run. I felt like I wanted to, talk to the people that cared about me most and express my gratitude for the experience of worthiness of their love at a level I had never known before.
Beautiful. And so in designing this whole program, the way I experience it as a loved one doing it is it's weeks and weeks of calls heading up, and then it's the experience. And I think a lot of times in this culture we get in this thing, I'm gonna take a pill and then I'm gonna be better. And
it's a lie.
Yeah, and that's why I call this the Neuro Journey, is just because once I realized that I'm on a journey, and it's never ending, and I hope it never ends because it would be boring,
right?
And then I'm continuing to kind of move forward on it. It really increased my healing. And I know you had experienced some psychedelics before, but you probably had done this more often, right? In Ibogaine. So in developing Beond's approach to Ibogaine, which clearly is not just like give someone a dose and see what happens.
Nothing. It couldn't be further from that.
Yeah.
Every aspect of what we do is meticulously calculated to know what's going to happen, at least physiologically. So, our preparation protocols, our clinical protocols are designed to minimize, we can't eliminate, minimize risk by studying the effects of the combination of the Ibogaine with all of the modern medical care that we can incorporate.
So minimizing risk is one thing. How are we maximizing thriving? Because I think, it's like for me, it's like I feel healing, right? I had to get to a certain level of healing because I kept hitting kind of a wall because my foundation was just not there.
Yes.
But like now I feel like I can learn things much quicker. Like I used to be able to kind of tangentially understand this would be good for me, but then I was just so worked up I couldn't get to it. And so I feel like really I want to continue healing because there's more. I've got abuse that's still memories that come up, and I work through them, but I'm able to thrive. And I feel like your clinic is not your clinic. What's the right word? Center.
It's a center.
The center is for thriving.
Well,
really.
Yeah.
We try to meet people where they're at. Ibogaine's a catalyst. So for me, at the age of 20, when I was really just tapping who I am and my deep trauma and deep addiction issue, I was on one side of the spectrum, right? And it's as a journey, as you say. And I like to say we're everlasting gobstoppers. We're never done healing in this life, but we evolve more and more, and our center gets stronger. And we, I don't crumble in the same way I did at the age of 20. I'm able to, my nervous system's regulated now, and that comes from years of work and daily practice. So we see people who are coming more for health and optimization, for neurogenesis, people maybe who have done a lot of work already, but they're burnt out, or they are trying to figure out what they want to do next in their career. They're coming more for creativity or for not because something is wrong, but because they want to see the potential. They want to, find their life partner or start a new career, so there's different stages that people are at, and Ibogaine is a catalyst wherever people are for a new beginning, so to speak. And it will bring awareness and show you, okay, I can work on this area, or I need to work on this. And then you have it gives you, because of the critical period that is with you for so long, which is something that Gul Dolan talks about, this neurogenesis and the neural flexibility to create new habits around what you want to either change or what you want to create in your life. And you become more aware day to day while the noribogaine is working through your body. So we just provide tools that help people to meet their goals, really, for the months and years after they have, the experience at Beond.
Yeah, my experience with psychedelics is that the journey was always very appropriate to whatever was going on with me, right?
I see.
They change, and they're much more about more recently about kind of connection to source and less about the past. Mm-hmm. But you must see people who come maybe with acute symptoms and then are coming back for more general thriving over time.
That's
in that process. So you mentioned critical period. Can you define that for people so they understand what that means?
Well, it's really a period of learning where you're more open to creating changes in your life.
Yeah, and during that time, there's a increased neuroplasticity. So the brain, we now know, is actually able to change that what psychedelics and the complementary practices do is they change the brain by causing it to grow, and so that period of time lasts where that is most highly concentrated somewhere between 60 to 90 days or longer. We're not actually sure because Ibogaine is a Schedule 1 in the United States currently, that the level of frequency of research to really determine how long that critical period is has never really been understood fully yet. We know it's longer than all the other known psychedelics by a long shot, but no one knows how long it is.
And of course, it depends on what you do during that period. If you're drinking or if you're going back to the same environment and not creating new change, that period closes.
You could be reinforcing the old patterns, right?
Precisely.
Make it worse.
The
Exactly.
old thought patterns and behavioral patterns. And so, to pick up where Talia left off, what she didn't mention was she created the whole program around health and optimization, where people who are demonstrably qualified, meaning they're not in acute crisis, they're able to show our clinical team that they are not suffering from the symptoms of acute mood and trauma disorder or chemical dependency, can have a slightly shorter stay, 7 days instead of 10 or 14 days, and really jumpstart that neuroplasticity with there's incorporation of cognitive assessments, of activities designed to both inspire them and new thought patterns and new skill sets and new orientation to learning and growing and changing. So activities like chess and VR technology and other ways of getting people to quite literally think differently than they're used to about themselves, about the reason for their existence, and what they're going to do in all the key dimensions of their life to have a deeper, more meaningful sense of purpose and joy. This is what Beond really is here to do, is to help people reclaim their joy. All of us, many of us at some point or another in our childhood knew this feeling of joy. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't even call it joy. It was just like the hot pavement under our feet, or the dirt under our nails, or watching, Little League, or the challenge of getting to first base, or cheerleading, or whatever, ice skating. There was just this sense that life was on our side and joy was the reason we were here. Do you know what I mean?
Curiosity, pure presence, wonder. Yeah. These are, the GDNF from Ibogaine, the glial-derived nootropic factors. That's part of the elements that Ibogaine brings.
And somehow we got busy. Grades seem to eclipse the joy of learning, and points seem to eclipse the joy of playing the game. And somehow the shape of our body became more important than the shape of our heart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we think that people should not have to, and frankly, our guests more and more, and our team more and more, and people who are curious about Beond and that follow us on social media and come to the, that read the research that our research team publishes and shares, they seem to believe that, they don't have to have a breakdown to experience a breakthrough, that they've been hearing this voice all along, speaking to them, that they're allowed to reconnect to themselves and each other and a sense of purpose and learning and joy. And they don't have to wait until there's an acute crisis for them to have that experience again.
Yeah, because I like that, because I've had a mixed sort of feelings about intentions and these psychedelic things. Because I get it. Certainly, if I'm a heroin addict, I'm going to tend to not be on heroin. But Leah and I were talking about, we spent a lot of time talking about this journey, and I was like, let's not be so presumptuous that we know what we need. Like this is an opportunity to let our deepest wisdom come out. Yeah. And these are my feelings. I don't know what's really going on, whether it's going out, but I just feel like we're breaking down our defenses to let our true wisdom.
You're exactly right.
And
that makes perfect sense.
And hear that. And so, like you're saying, you don't need to be broken down. And a lot of people don't want to identify.
Right.
I'm not one of those people.
Right.
But, how do I feel the way I want to feel?
But more and more, especially after COVID, it's hard to avoid someone in their family had that breakdown.
Yeah.
And even though, you might have the perfect SUV and the perfect Lululemons and the perfect hair color and the perfect Christmas card, someone in that Christmas card fell apart and you couldn't deny it anymore. And now there was this breakdown and everybody had to rally around that individual. Hopefully they did, and to support them. Why? Because of love. And then people got to be honest and to say, it's okay to not be okay. And why do we have to stave off? We weren't meant to manage our symptoms forever. We're not, psychotherapy and psychiatry played a very important role in my life. And pharmaceuticals helped me when I was in acute crisis. But maybe therapy and meds aren't the whole solution. Maybe there's more to it. Maybe we're allowed to listen to that inner voice that says, I deserve to have joy in my life. And it could be the guiding principle of my existence.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a friend of mine, very successful person. He was in Chile with his family skiing in the summertime. And I just started posting my things, right? And he saw some of my videos. He was like, I'm with all of my favorite people doing the thing that I love to do most. And I'm up at 2 a.m. I'm miserable.
Yeah.
And he took some solace from my videos, which felt really, really good to me. But it's like, you can perceive, I think this thing can happen where you feel like more unworthy because you work so hard for the things, the experiences that could happen, and then they happen and it's not doing it for you. Yeah. And then it can make you feel, worse. And, my experience of and I really appreciate that you guys have been so vulnerable and told your stories. Like everything in my life has opened up since I've become like this weepy version of myself. Yeah. So, and I told Tom.
It's so beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you.
You're a feeling human being. You always have been. Just because you had created a maladaptive skill to stuff your feelings aside so that you could earn your worth didn't actually change who you are.
Yeah, I learned how to do it. I can cry, right? My whole life I've been like this. I just know how to do it. I can cry in front of you. I'll crack a joke and turn my head and do this kind of thing. And you won't know it. I've cried in front of hundreds
Now you just let it rip.
Now I do.
And that's beautiful. And life is meeting you more authentically. Like people are.
The first time it's really I really remember it because I was in men's group. And what my men's group leader does, one of his techniques is he'll sort of see somebody that's having a moment, and he's very good at this. But he's like, why don't you try on for size, saying, I always undermine my relationships because I feel unworthy of love, and one, to get a person to say it out loud is not always easy. Men some men's group shift. But for mine, I didn't know this at the time, but I know my sexual abuser as the bad man. That's what when it came under hypnosis, like who's hurting me? The bad man. What's he doing?
I'm so sorry.
And this is years before it, but in men's group, he was like, oh, I want you to try on for size saying, deep down inside, I feel like a bad man. And I mean, I just, it was like I couldn't employ my techniques. I mean, just crying. And universally, all the guys were like, man, like, I feel you so much. And like, I just got like so much positive reinforcement for that experience. And I was like, I realized this. I often employ the exact opposite technique that is useful in the situation. And it takes me quite a long time to learn it, but eventually I'm a decent learner. And I was like, oh, I'm getting what I want by actually being me than like hiding it and fronting and pretending to be somebody that I'm not.
Yeah, if it worked, you could keep doing it, but it doesn't work.
Well, and
very unsatisfying.
I convinced myself, they would tell me one other thing that we would do is they would say, we'd drop in, we look in each other's eyes for a couple breaths, and we say, let's give reflections. What do you see? And universally, the guys said for years, Steve looks sad. Steve looks sad. And I was like, you guys aren't very good at this. I'm not sad. And I took 5-MeO DMT, and when I came down from it, I just cried for 20 minutes. I mean, it was just like, it was inconsolable. And I was saying things out loud, like, I hurt so bad inside. And I could tell why. I was like, okay, this is why I'm so afraid of it, because I'm worried it's going to, not be this little weep that I did.
Right, a volcano.
I think, that it won't stop. I had that.
Yes,
it'll just keep going on and on.
But I mean, I just sort of feel like in every domain, vulnerability, at least my personal experience of it is profound. And just telling my story is helpful to people,
it can be. It's a skill. Did you see in the gratitude circle this morning at Beond, when people went around how by being vulnerable, of course, we feel seen and heard and less lonely. But equally importantly, we give permission to other people to be vulnerable and to feel seen and heard, and ultimately to feel less lonely. And by doing that, we're actually creating the community of healing. And as a result of that, they open up more and more to themselves. That, talking about trauma, talking about the pain of my past never made the pain worse. But I thought it would. I thought it would make the present worse, but it actually never made it worse. It didn't make it go away either, but it never made it worse. And so what you saw in the gratitude circle at Beond this morning was people practicing, telling the truth about their worthiness, invoking worthiness by sharing about gratitude, something profound, something, very pedestrian, and then beginning to see other people do the same. And by doing that, serving as a momentary role model to each other, saying it's okay for you to tell how you're feeling. And that, like, I've seen you do it during this interview and our session together. I've seen you do it earlier when we were talking, and when during the gratitude circle. You're a role model, whether you want to be or not.
Wow. First time someone's called me a role model.
You are.
Thank you.
You are, especially to fathers, people who are in transitions in their career, who have chosen to make the commitment to change their life and to serve other people and to live with, love in their heart, and to activate that love and to create programming and content that will inspire other people to first pay attention, and second, change the way they see themselves, and hopefully begin to change the way they see other people around them. And what does that do? It changes the world. It makes the world better, in a place that we all we know is possible, we want to live in, but like somehow government and somehow school and somehow all these other methods didn't quite figure out how to get it done.
Yeah, it's a journey. You know, it's interesting. You mentioned the loneliness, and you were showing me like the app and the community that
Yeah,
you
our
keep,
alumni app and
so
the
people
candles.
can continue to be engaged with this. Because I know for me, I live in Boulder. There's a lot of people on this path there, and it's easy to find souls. But some people are going places where maybe this is not.
We've had guests
so
from all 50 states, and plenty of people from Alaska. Mm-hmm. Some people from parts of the country where they live hours and hours away from other people at all. We need an app. We use an alumni app where they can tap into the programming. Tonight, we have a alumni integration circle led by one of our therapeutic coaches, and there'll probably be a few dozen people on there talking about how it's going. Some of those people will remember each other from when they were at Beond here in Cancun. Other of them will be meeting new people who have been to Cancun after they left or were there before they had visited. So it really is a virtual or remote community of people who are continuing to share the truth about where they are today in the journey of becoming a better version of themselves.
And part of that is changing their brain. I mean, they're getting the tools to be with like-minded people to continue these patterns in this critical period and beyond. Because, my experience with this is it's a daily thing. Like,
hopefully,
these are events that are really powerful, but the work is daily.
Yeah, hopefully.
And it's interesting. I've noticed in my own life, telling my story about some of the difficult things has been relatively easy, but receiving stuff like my son, we were in New York recently, and he said that he was on a high, he felt really good. He was at Columbia for a week, and we were at dinner. And he's a very articulate young man, 17, and he really just told me like what a great dad he thought I was. And it was an interesting thing because my old patterns came up. Like I noticed myself, he's very articulate. It was very well, said. And it could have been, if I was really receiving it, one of the best moments of my life.
Yeah.
And I had difficulty receiving it.
Oh,
I told myself I was looking down. I was, and luckily I was aware enough to be, I was like, oh, this is what's happening. You're telling me this thing that's super important to me, and I want to be present for it, but I'm my old patterning. Yeah. And it's interesting. It happens a lot when it's like the good stuff coming in. And that's also something that we can practice.
I love that. I think that, what's your son's name?
Apollo.
A great name. He's going to be a great father. You're raising your grandchildren by being that type of dad to Apollo. You should be very proud of that.
Thank you. Yeah, I am. I feel really good about it. And I know you guys are busy and you have a lot going on. You're leaving on an international trip today.
We actually need to wrap up.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would want to say to wrap this up, to communicate to people? That
I can't thank you enough. I'd just like to say thank you so much for what you're doing, for visiting us at Beond, for the courage that you're showing, the creativity that you're using to, inspire me and to probably inspire many other people who get to see this. Thank you. It's wonderful to be with you.
Talia? Yeah, it's such an honor for you guys to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming and sharing yourselves with us. Yes.
Yeah.
And if anyone needs support, we're here. You can find us online. There's people to talk to through our website. We're open to hearing from you.
Great.
We would love to meet you. I mean, we're here to continue to grow ourselves, and as we grow, it's just this beautiful virtuous circle. And so I'm just so grateful that you were able to make the time and travel all this way from Colorado to Cancun to spend time with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining the Neuro's Journey podcast.
If this episode landed, share it with someone who needs to hear it. The real medicine is in the connection, and this community only grows when we reach for each other. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming, and if you have a minute, leaving a rating really helps more people find this work. And keep showing up for your own journey. Every small act of courage matters, for you, for the people around you, and for all of us. I am so grateful to be walking this path with you.